To another video. Today is my March reading wrap up. This will be the first wrap up that will be on my planning channel, so please do let me know down below what you think of me posting my book content on here. I'm very much trying to figure out what I'm doing with my YouTube right now, and I know I'm saying that in every video and I know it's annoying, but I don't know which of the videos you will watch. And if this happens to be the first one, it would be really helpful to me to know what you think of this content being on here, because I'm gonna have to start to make some final decisions at some point, so do let me know. Apologise for my general attire. I didn't want to put up makeup and do my hair and get dressed into something better than this for this video, because I would rather you have the real me than the fake put on cat, because this is what I look like, you know, a lot of the time. So hopefully you don't mind too much. So in March, I read 7 books, which is my worst reading month of the year, but I very much appreciate 7 is still a really good number when I work full time, and March was my by far busiest month generally of the year. So the fact that I read 7 is still really impressive. And thankfully, I'm still on track for my 100 books for the year. I know if I don't hit that, it doesn't mean anything to anybody other than me, but I would really love to hit the 100. And right now I'm like probably 2 ahead of where I can be. So right now we're doing okay, but it's so borderline as to me falling behind, but we'll see. I've decided not to do stats in this video. I did try and do stats in my February one, which is on my reading channel. So if you do want to check that out, obviously I would love that. But I tried to do some stats in there, but I've decided not to, because I'm actually going to do it in my reading journal. So I posted a reading journal set up on this channel where I talked a little bit about what I'm going to be doing with my reading journal, but I haven't done January and February in there, so doing March in there would be really tricky. So I've decided I'm just going to do all of the quarter one in that journal at the same time. I think that makes for more interesting content, keeps things a little bit different. So that's what I'm going to do with that. And so I'm going to put all my stats in that video and I'll talk about them there, because I've been a bit inconsistent with my stats anyway. So I may as well put them concentratedly in that video, because I will be like sticking in charts and stuff. So it's much easier to talk about my stats. So I hope that that's okay. Let me know what you think of that format, particularly once you see that video. Let me know what you think. But for this video, I'm just going to be talking about the books and what I thought of them and what rating I gave them. I have to say, when I think about my reading in March, I thought I'd had a worse time than I actually did. But, you know, there are some well-rated books in here. But I think that this first one kind of set the tone for March in a way that I didn't really want it to. So the first book I read in March is Husband Material by Alexis Hall. I read the first in this series, Boyfriend Material, in November or December of 2022, and I loved it. 5 stars, one of my favourite books of the year. It was incredible. In the story, we followed Luke and Oliver, and Luke is, I've talked about this book so many times. I talked about it so many times, but in the story, basically Luke is really struggling with his mental health. He has a really complicated relationship with his dad, who's making a comeback in his music career, and Luke is acting out. He is getting caught drunk on camera a lot, and he works for a charity as a fundraiser, and a lot of people who he needs money from to keep the charity going say that they're not willing to keep donating while Luke is having such public issues. So his friend recommends that he, you know, tries to improve his public image by dating somebody who is, you know, kind of someone quite reputable, who someone would like, you know, who the people of the charity would be really proud to see Luke with and get over some of the issues that they're having. And so she recommends her barrister friend, Oliver. And did I put the right one? Yeah, to Oliver. And they end up fake dating, one of my favourite tropes. And you know, Oliver has stuff to gain by fake dating Luke as well. Sorry, this curl, it's a little bit irritating. I can see it like bouncing in the camera. Anyway, so yeah, Oliver has stuff to gain by fake dating Luke as well, and they end up gaining feelings for each other, as always happens in a fake dating trope. But I loved it. It really gave me Heartstopper vibes. It was such a good story. And I was really wary of reading Husband Material because, to be honest, I didn't need a sequel. Boyfriend Material, I felt, was a pretty much perfect book for me, and I didn't need a second book. But I decided I would push forward and I would read the second book. But I had really put it off because I was worried about being disappointed. And that was really odd timing from the ice cream van. But yeah, unfortunately, I was very disappointed with this. So this is basically 2 years on from the first one, and all of Luke and Oliver's friends are getting married. Not even friends, like Luke's ex-boyfriend is getting married, and you know, there's a lot of marriages that are happening in this book. It's split up into sections. That is an obnoxious ice cream fan. I'm so sorry. Why is it like, it feels like it's in our house? Okay, I think we're done. The book is split into sections, and the sections are a different wedding, with the final one being Luke and Oliver's. It kind of undid some stuff that happens in the first one. There is a lot of drama in this, which I just didn't need. Like, and in some ways, like, it was really interesting because I think there's an interview somewhere in this, possibly, where Alexis is kind of asked to talk about why he decided to write the second book, and he says that it's really uncommon in a romance that you get to write the next chapter of a couple's story and you get to see actually how do they cope with everything from the first one. Are these two people actually compatible in being together? And I understand that and kind of respect that, but I didn't need it. I actually was very happy, like, thinking that Luke and Oliver had just like ridden off into the sunset and were having a perfect time. This book is a lot of them not having that. And to be honest, in this book, I was really questioning whether I thought these two people should be together. And even by the end, I was like, should Luke and Oliver be in a relationship? And I didn't feel that in the first one. So it's an interesting concept, and I can understand why Alexis did it, because, you know, you get the opportunity to carry on with these characters, you get the opportunity to address some things that don't normally get addressed, but it's not the story I wanted. So I gave this three, I think I gave it three. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars, but I'm going to be honest, I think that's a generous 3 stars because I still laughed a lot of times. I really love Luke's friends, and so spending a bit more time with them was nice. Like, one of the characters in the first one gets married in this one, and it was, that whole section is really funny. So I didn't hate it. It's just I didn't need it. I didn't need the story to carry on. And I think there's at least one, if not another one, in this series, and I don't know if I'm going to pick them up or not. It feels really weird when you're like, you love a first book to then think you might not pick up any more, but I just don't know if I can. And to be honest, I think I'm probably going to unhaul this because I'm like, I need the first one to exist without this. I don't need the series to include this book. So yeah, unfortunately, I did start the month off on a pretty disappointing read. And I think ultimately this is the one that disappointed me the most because it's the one I expected to love the most. I then finished an audiobook, which was Agatha, Raisin and the Walkers of Dembley. If you don't know, I have been listening to the Agatha Raisin series on audiobook. They are a very easy listen. They're like 4 to 6 hours an audiobook, and it's a cozy mystery series. I really enjoyed the first one. And then, you know, these books are of their time. They came out, the first one came out in 1992. So these books are as old as me. And I know that you are supposed to be able to sort of overlook some elements of like, well, it's of its time. But there comes a point where, for me, the racism just got too much. In the last one, I felt really uncomfortable. And not just even the racism, to be honest, it was the sexism in this one even more so. There's racism in some of the other ones. And I read similar reviews where people said this was the one where they got turned off the series, and so at least, you know, it wasn't just me thinking it, because sometimes I can get in my own head about that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm really sad about it because I don't enjoy any other listening experience as much as I enjoy these books. They're really easy to pick up and drop down. I listen to my audiobooks in like 10-minute bursts, and they are ideal for that, but I either need a break or I'm completely DNF'd. So for now, I consider the series DNF'd because I don't see how I can pick it up again. There's other things I could listen to and spend my Audible credit on than racist, sexist books. So yeah, if you've read anywhere in the series and you think I could pick it up again and it would stop bothering me, it would be good to know. But there is a storyline, particularly between Agatha and James, that does progress by book, so you kind of can't skip. Kind of doubt you have, but if you have listened to it and you think I could maybe skip and get past some of this nonsense, I would like to know. I gave it 2 stars as a reflection of that, because they are still enjoyable to listen to. It's just obviously I found it really problematic. Okay, next up we have Exes and O's by Amy Lee. So I read Set on You in February. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to, and this was actually the book I was more excited for in the series. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to pick it up pretty soon, and I am really glad that I did. So in the first book we have Crystal and the guy, I can't think what his name is, but basically Crystal's like a curvy fitness influencer, and she ends up in a kind of like enemies to lovers thing with this guy. This one is quite different in vibe to that. So we do still, the whole series is called like the Influencer series. So we follow Crystal's sister Tara. Tara is a book Book influencer. So that's already enjoyable for a book person to read about a book influencer. Though she predominantly does Instagram lives, and I just felt the way that that was actually shown was like I don't know. I was like, I don't think this really is an Instagram live. I think you're actually filming like a reel or something. I don't know. It was a little bit confusing. But anyway. But yeah, so Tara is a book Instagrammer. But that's not really the main part of the plot. So Tara loves love. She's a real romantic. And in the first book, we find out that she was left at the altar pretty much, like almost, by her ex. And she still works with him. She's a nurse, he's a doctor. She still sees him all the time. So she is surrounded by him. She's constantly reminded that her love life didn't work. And she ends up moving out of, because when that happened, she was like basically, you know, sleeping on Crystal's sofa. Crystal's moving in with the guy from the first one. And so she needs to move out. And so she basically, she swaps with Scott. And so she ends up moving in with his best friend, Trevor, who is also a firefighter, same as Scott. And basically, when Tara first moves in with him, Trevor is, you know, he's very attractive. He is like sleeping with someone like when she first meets him. And I think that part of this and part of just like loving love and wanting to find, you know, an option, but she really doesn't want an online date. So she ends up basically going through all her previous exes to figure out if she could have a second chance romance. Obviously, she's a booktuber, like a book Instagrammer, so loves a book trope. And so she wants to see if she can have her second chance romance. So for the whole book, it's kind of focused on her looking for her second chance romance, but actually it's a friends to lovers because Trevor helps her this entire time. And he's adorable. Like, I don't know whether it's always difficult with these like really attractive guys that sleep with a million people as to whether they would be able to undo so much of their like, why are we back? They don't want the ice cream. It's difficult whether you can truly believe that these guys would be able to undo what seems to be like a major, you know, source of their personality around that. But it's really cute. Trevor is adorable. His feelings for Tara are just so cute. I really, really enjoyed this. I think I flew through it from what I remember. I don't actually know if I enjoyed it any more than the first one though, because the premise of this one is so much more something I would enjoy, but I did enjoy the first one more than I expected, and I don't think I necessarily loved it anymore. So I still gave it 4 stars, but I would really recommend this. And I assume the third one is following their friend, Mel. So really excited for the third one. I really like Amy Lee's writing. I think it's really enjoyable. It's a really easy read. If you like romance, I would definitely recommend this series. Okay, so then I decided that I was going to finish out a series because, you know, like all of us who make book content, I have a lot of series I've started and haven't finished, and this was one I thought, I've only got 1 book left, I can push ahead with this. So this is The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. So the first one is The Kiss Quotient, and then the second one is The Bride Test. I thought The Kiss Quotient was fine. I gave it 3 stars, and I hadn't been 100% sure I was going to follow on with the series, but I ended up buying the other 2 pretty cheap from the works. I read The Bride Test, I think, earlier this year, and I actually really enjoyed it. I gave that one 4 stars, and so I thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to see how we get on with the third one. I'd seen a lot of people make content about this book that it is actually not really a romance. It's really sad. It made them sob. And so part of me was like, why is that? What, you know, why am I going to end up feeling that way? So I get it now. So in this story, we are following Anna, who is a very, very talented violinist. And she ends up, there's some kind of issues surrounding her violin playing. The guy that she's with, she doesn't really massively enjoy being in a relationship, or at least not all aspects of being in a relationship, but she kind of feels like she should be with somebody, and if she's going to be with somebody, she may as well be with the guy that she's with. And he randomly one day says to her he wants to try seeing other people to be sure he wants to marry her. And just such an idiot move. And she doesn't really know how to deal with this. And she's also dealing with the fact that she's like can't play right now. She's basically burnt out from her playing. So she decides to act out in the only way she thinks she can, which is to have a one-night stand. And she's going to date as many men as she can to basically get her own back on her ex. She does not do that. She ends up in a text conversation with Kwan, and Kwan is featured in book 1 and book 2. And I was so excited for his book, because he's presented in the first 2 as flawed but lovely. He's known in the second book in particular as a real player. He sleeps with a lot of people, but he does it in a way that's kind of endearing, even if it shouldn't be. And when we meet him in this story, we realise that this book is 2 years on from the second one, and he's been dealing with some life stuff as well. And do look up the trigger warnings for that. I don't want to say, because I think it would be counted as a spoiler, but do look up the trigger warnings because I didn't expect it and was a bit thrown by it. So they end up, and he hasn't slept with anyone in that time, and so he ends up on the dating app at the same time that Anna does. They end up chatting. This book is not what you think it is, though, because what you then think this is going to be is the two of them thinking that they just want to, a one-night stand, and then it becomes more than that. It's so much more than that, because Anna then ends up having to take care of her dad. There's so many trigger warnings for this book. Honestly, please look it up because it's a difficult read. She ends up being a carer for her dad in an incredibly complicated situation with some really difficult decisions that she has to make. She also, through the course of the story, understands a bit more about her behaviors. She gets diagnosed during the course of the story, so she's dealing with that. Kwan is dealing with the stuff that he's got going on with. They have these really strong feelings for each other, this instant connection, but how is he going to make a life with her while she's dealing with these really challenging life situations? It is not a romance. There is some steam in here, but it's so not about that, and you just need to know that going in. It is harrowing and challenging, and I friggin' loved it. This was a 5-star read. This was my first 5-star of the year. I was getting to a point where I thought I couldn't rate anything 5 stars anymore, but this was my first 5-star. And I love a fluffy romance, and I've in April have read a fluffy romance that I gave 5 stars. But I found out in 2022 that I do like challenging mental health books. As someone who has very challenging mental health of my own, this book just hit me. It dealt with stuff I understood and have dealt with. And I just really got it. I really understood it. But please look up the trigger warnings if you're going to read it. It's very different from the first two. A lot of the reviews on Goodreads are about people saying, wow, this book is nothing like the first two. The author was clearly going through some stuff, and this book was delayed because of the stuff she was going through, which she deals with that in some ways through this story. It's a lot, so just be prepared for that. I think it's well worth the read, but it's a challenging read. But I really enjoyed it. This is by far the best of the series. It's so much better than the first one. So yeah. I really enjoyed it, but just be prepared going in. Okay, then I love a YA romance, okay? I just, I'm a big fan. And I had a TBR because I was supposed to be doing Final Book Support Group in March, which is run by Steph Loves. And these books were, at least these two were definitely on that. And then the next 2 books I'm going to talk about after this one were on that TBR. So I did an all right job with the TBR. I also read about 120 pages of Jade Legacy, which was also on that TBR, but that will be rolled over into April, and I talk about that in my April TBR. But yeah, I didn't do terribly with that TBR. I didn't read everything I wanted to, but it wasn't too bad. But after The Heart Principle, I was like emotionally broken, and I thought I need something a little bit easier to read. It's time for a quick, easy YA romance, which is not what I got. So the next book that I read is A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey. I picked up this book, literally a cover buy, but it's one of the prettiest covers I've ever seen. I picked this up in Waterstones randomly one day, and I thought it was going to be much cuter than it actually was. There is also a lot of quite harrowing, challenging stuff in here, which I didn't really realise. So Lila...
Editing cat here, just to say that the name of this character is actually pronounced Leela. But obviously when you're reading, that's harder to remember. But I had forgotten that since this book, so just to apologise. I say Lila every time, but it is pronounced Leela.
Lives in the States. Where does she live? California? I think it doesn't say it. Oh, Miami. So Lila lives in Miami, and her abuela passes away. She has a massive falling out with her best friend, and her boyfriend breaks up with her. So she has the triple whammy, and she basically has a mental breakdown, and she goes on a run one day, and she runs for hours. She doesn't have her phone. She has no way of contacting anyone. She doesn't drink water, and she collapses. Thankfully, her family find her, but they are so worried about her that they send her to her aunt, who lives in Winchester in England, for the summer. So for her 18th birthday, that's where she's going to be spending her time. She really struggles with this. She's really not dealing with the stuff that's going on with her, the stuff with her abuela and all that stuff. She is not dealing well with that. She doesn't want to be in England. It's cold and, there's not really anything to do. But she bakes. That's her thing. She's going to take over her abuela's bakery. And so she ends up helping out in the kitchen at the B&B that her aunt runs, and so that gives her some purpose. And she meets a guy called Orion, which is, I don't think that that's a common name, but it's kind of brought up in like how she's linked to the stars and things. But yeah, she meets this guy called Orion who runs the tea shop. Well, his dad does, but his dad travels a lot, so he kind of runs it. These are a lot of like put on kids at 17 and 18. So she meets Orion and they build a friendship which turns into more. There's a real kind of lovely cast of characters in the story, and it is really about Lila realizing that her love for Miami is not necessarily as strong as she thought it was, or at least you can think of home as being somewhere else. Home was a concept of the people rather than the place. And so it's basically, it's about her dealing with, actually, does my heart belong in Winchester rather than in Miami? And I did enjoy this. I gave it 3 stars. It just wasn't my favorite thing I'd ever read. I found it was mostly the writing style that I found challenging with this. It's littered with metaphors. It felt like words were missing at times. And so every time I put it down and picked it up again, it took me so long to get back into the story because the writing style was so jarring that it just meant it was a really difficult read for me. And ultimately, I didn't find Lila that likable. She's going through some stuff, but she's very judgmental and thinks that her stuff is always more important than other people's stuff. And I always kind of find that quite hard to read in books. But you kind of sometimes just wanted to like shake her and be like, look how good you could have it now, and your abuela would want you to live, and all these kinds of things. And she just wasn't likable the whole time. But as I say, the writing style was the main thing I didn't love about this. So I'm absolutely gutted that I'm going to be unhauling this because, as I say, this cover, one of my favorites. And I feel like it's going to be one of those books that I like leave sat like on my unhaul pile for a while because I think it's too nice to unhaul. But I really don't think I would read this again. As I say, I did enjoy it. And the concept of this is very much my kind of thing of like somebody going through some stuff and then realizing she can, rebuild her life somewhere else. I like the concept of the story. I just found the writing style very challenging.
Another thing that I forgot to include is whenever I review YA books, I will kind of talk about whether I think they're actually appropriate for the audience that they're meant for. So in the case of this one, I think an older YA probably has a lot to gain from this. As I say, whether I could recommend it because of the writing style, I don't know. I will also generally talk about whether any sex is featured in the book, and I don't remember any, so I'm relatively confident in saying that isn't featured as part of this story. They're of an age where it would be absolutely fine, but I don't think it was mentioned.
So I think that book put me in a little bit of a reading slump, to be honest. Obviously, I did read like 120 pages of Jade Legacy in here, which won't really feature in this wrap up. So that definitely went kind of okay, but I was in a bit of a reading slump. But I got to the end of March and was like, I've only read 5 books. And, one of those is a really short audiobook, right? And I was like, I'm worried, not worried because that's dramatic, but I wanted to get closer to my 100 books. I wanted to be at 25, which is what I needed to be at the end of the quarter. And I felt like I really hadn't got through my final book support group TBR, even though there's no penalty for that or anything, but I just hadn't really got through it. But I did manage to push through a couple of books in the last few days of March. So the first one is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake. This was my final book support group prompt for like letter generator, and it's all the A's. So this is the sequel to Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which I gave 3.5 stars, and I thought it was fine, but it's really, really beloved on BookTube, and I didn't love it as much as everybody else. And you can see, I think that would have been in my August wrap-up, so if you want to watch that, that's on my book channel. But I decided that I would pick this one up anyway because I was so interested to see what happens with Delilah's stepsister Astrid, because in the first book, Astrid is supposed to be getting married. So you find out more about that through the first book, and I won't spoil it in case you haven't read it, but obviously then you get a sequel about Astrid and you kind of want to know what's happening there. And I think I just get sucked in. I really don't know what it is about this series that I don't love, but I just find it hard to really get to, I don't know, to just be with the characters, to just belong with them. I really struggle with that with this series, and I don't particularly know why. And I don't feel I can speak about what this one is about because I feel it's such a spoiler for the first one. So I'm not going to really say anything about this one. But I'm so gutted because I love the cover. These are drawn by Leni Kaufman, who's my favourite book cover artist. I really, really love these book covers. I love the concepts of them. And I still want to read the third one because the third one is about their other friend, Iris. And Iris makes planners for a living. So it's my two things combining. But I don't particularly like Iris's character in the first two. And so I'm not really sure I'm going to like her anymore in her own book when I'm spending all my time with her. And I don't think Ashley Herring-Blake's writing is for me, but I will probably still read it because I'm flawed that way. But yeah, so I did push through to read this one quicker than I think I would have done if I hadn't have been trying to hit the goal to read it at the end of the month. I think, like Delilah Green Doesn't Care, this would have taken me a long time to get through, but ultimately I did push through it. Sometimes it was a little bit challenging to do that, but I did it. We're there. It's done. I got another book towards the reading challenge. Then my final book for March, which I just got in before March finished, and this was also on my final book support group TBR, was Lore Olympus Volume 2 by Rachel Smythe. This is a graphic novel series and it's a Hades and Persephone retelling. I don't know a lot about the Greek gods, and that is maybe one criticism I would have of this series, is that it assumes you have some knowledge of the Greek gods, so you might want to do some reading about it to help you enjoy it a little bit more. But it was a web comic, and so at times it moves a little bit slowly because of that, because it was releasing in chapters on like the webtoon. But honestly, I don't mind that it's slow. It's basically 400 pages of mutual pining, and I'm cool with that. There's just something about this series that I really enjoy. I love the artwork. I like spending time with the characters. I think Hades is adorable. This one, a lot of it is about the age gap, which is about 2,000 years between Hades and Persephone, and Hades dealing with the mental challenges of that. It's just a super interesting plot point. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but I think, no, yeah, I gave it 4.5. I was going to say this is higher than a 4, but yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. The artwork is stunning. So that took longer than I expected, but this was the page I wanted to show you. Just look at it. It's so stunning. I love the art. Each of the gods and goddesses has a different colour, and it's just beautiful. I really love it. So I'm really excited to read the third one in this series. This took me longer than it should have done to pick up, so I really want to try and not wait so long to pick up the third one, because the story very much does follow on, and I had to like try and remember during the beginning of this one. I was like, oh, what? Okay, that really linked to the first one. So I kind of wish I'd read them more in quick succession, but then the fourth one isn't out yet. So if I read the third one now, I wouldn't be able to binge read them anyway. But I really enjoyed this. I had such a good time. I don't really know why I haven't rated it 5 stars. I don't know whether it's that it just doesn't quite give me that 5-star feeling. Ultimately, nothing happens in volume 2. So I guess it's kind of hard to rate it a 5 for me, because nothing happens. So you're kind of just rating like beautiful art and mutual pining, which, as I say, was really enjoyable, but maybe isn't 5-star vibes. So these plus the audiobook are what I read for March. As I say, not my best reading month ever, but not bad. So I will let myself off when I had so much to do in March. This is still pretty impressive. And I'm really looking forward to April. So I'm filming this on the 4th of April, and I've already read my first book for April, which is great. And I'm hoping I'll finish Jade Legacy. Oh, the other thing is I'm also listening to European Travels of the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss. It is the longest audiobook in the entire world. Well, they're just not, but it feels it. It's like a 700-page book, so it's like a 20-hour audiobook, and not a lot happens. It's very slow moving. I'm determined to finish it out because I used the credit on it, but for me personally, I'm finding it a real slog, and I should probably have finished it in March, but I just haven't because I couldn't get through it. So that's the other thing that I read in March, as well as 120 pages of Jade Legacy. That is my March reading wrap up. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would really appreciate a like, especially more than ever while this is on my planning channel, to see whether you like this content being on here or not. Please do comment down below. Let me know what you read in March. What was your favourite book? Try and convince me to put it on my TBR. I'm so easily swayed. I love getting recommendations from other people, so please let me know what you enjoyed most in March. I will also have links in the description to my Goodreads, so if you do want to check out out my like live thoughts on my books, that I always post a review as soon as I finish the book. So you can definitely check that out. And I will also have a link to my Instagram where I post more planning and book content. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video.